StudentPreneur, the podcast about students who are entrepreneurs. Get motivated and keep your energy high. Stories from studentpreneurs.
Welcome to episode 18. My name is Julian Marchand, entrepreneur turned PhD student. Each week, I'll bring you the best of those individuals who are students and entrepreneurs. I call them studentpreneurs. This week, our studentpreneur is Leo Lope Franco. Leo is a great example that whatever your field of study, you can bring a lot to a startup. I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode. So Leo, you're 22 and you're studying biology at the University of Ateneo de Manila in the Philippines. And your latest project is Project Mercury. And can you tell a little bit more about yourself?
I'm a senior university student in the Ateneo de Manila University. I study biology. I started Boober back in late 2013. It was on September 2013. And during that time, that was 2013. I was I think around 20 years old. So I didn't really know a lot about startups yet. I wasn't very informed in the startup scene. Here in the Philippines, the startup scene is, I would say, pretty young. It hasn't yet matured. When I say mature, it's not as glamorous as there in the US, in San Francisco. So there wasn't really much opportunities here in the Philippines, or probably there wasn't really yet that big startup scene. So when I was here, I didn't really know a lot about startups or entrepreneurship. That's when I went to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and had a student exchange over there.
So like a 6 months, a year?
I was a research assistant in a laboratory in Harvard. And then there I met with, a lot of interesting people. I also heard a lot about, that was still the time when Airbnb was getting a lot of news and getting a lot of, Uber was, getting a lot of news of its expansion. And then, it got me interested about how technology, is changing the landscape of what people usually use, the current infrastructure. And then so much new startups are disrupting that scene. And I got very interested about that. So
did you get exposed by talking with other researchers, or was it more about the environment that you were in over there in Boston?
Actually, when around us, when I was there, and then after doing my research, because in the research I was just talking nerd stuff, not really. Sorry. But when I went out of the lab, and then there were small events going on around the university, and then I got the chance to attend one of them, and then that's when I first heard about the startup scene. In Boston, the startup scene is very, vibrant. A lot of startups start there, especially, a lot of students, bright, excellent students from Harvard, MIT are coming from there and they're starting new businesses. So I really got, interested about that, the startup idea and starting a new business.
What type of event was this? Like a one-night event presentation?
A startup weekend. It was a startup weekend.
Oh, you went to a startup weekend. Excellent.
Yeah, so it was a startup weekend. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt right now.
Good.
Yeah, it was a startup weekend. It's just a mixer for people. I think you know already how it works, right?
Yeah. I've organized one a month ago.
Yeah, perfect.
But just let us know a bit more about how you felt, because when you arrived on the Friday afternoon, did you know what was going to happen? I'm like, do you have any idea?
I didn't know at all. So it was my first time. My friend just told me about it, that there was this startup weekend. And then when I went there and then saw so many people pitching their ideas, one after the other, and I was like, wow, so many people have, good ideas. And then I went to work with one of them. And then that's also when I started learning how to program. So before then, I didn't know how to do programming. But after that event, it got me interested in that. That is also why right now, I now program.
So now you program?
Yeah, I do program right now. Actually, my research is also a mix of biology and computer science. So yeah, my thesis right now is on simulations and models. And thanks to that, I was able to get that interest to know. So it's not only I can apply that programming skills to my startup, but right now I've used that to scale for my other stuff.
And did you get to understand this through the people you met at Startup Weekend and through the business you started there?
Yeah, from the people I met over there. So I met with, a very good programmer. And then he got me started how to, learn the first parts, like, just reading through blogs and all that, and told me some tips. And I actually just followed also. I remember, doing an online course in edX.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
I did also an online course, the beginner's course on Python.
Yep.
So I did that.
Did you have to pay for this or was it free?
No. It's free. It's completely free.
Oh,
You
nice.
just have to pay for it if you want to get, a certificate.
Yeah, the certificate, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't need a certificate. I wasn't
No,
going to pay.
who needs one? So what did the other student think of having a biologist in their team?
Well, they did actually. I don't know if they did know that. I don't remember actually the reaction, but my role there was more on the logo designing, and so I did a little bit. I didn't know a little bit the design, but it wasn't that expert. But I couldn't contribute other more than that, so that was my role. So I did the design there on that team, but along the process, getting to know the team, I got to know that programmer, and then I realized that I really need to learn that if I want to start a startup myself. It's I don't want to rely on other people outsourcing that. I don't really have that much money also to pay for that.
How was it after 54 hours of working with your team on Sunday night? And what was it on Monday when you woke up and the competition was over? And
Yeah, so it got me thinking of starting, looking for ideas. That's also when I realized, people traveling all the way, like every day. And here in the Philippines, a lot of Filipinos travel in the US, to work as overseas Filipino workers.
oh, wow. How does it work? What, they go for a year or something? Or
No, they stay for, the year, and then they extend one more year. There's in the US, I think Filipinos are the third most, no, Chinese, Spanish, probably the fifth most number of immigrants in the US.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in San Francisco, I think after Spanish, the most number of speakers are Tagalog, the Filipino language. So it's a highly concentrated. In the US, there's so many Filipinos. And then that's what we know already from the fact. And at the same time, we also know that a lot of Filipinos also it's a cultural tradition for us to ask our friends and relatives once they're coming from a different country to buy stuff for them. So
yes.
yeah, so we thought people do this on Facebook, like, hi, I'm traveling here and arriving here. Let me know if you need to buy something there from there. And then a lot of people would comment on that. I actually tried it myself, and a lot of people would, ask me PM, message me on Facebook, hey, could you buy me this one, that one, this one, all sorts of stuff. And, it was a platform.
Even if they don't know you very, very well?
Yeah. I just posted on a group we have in our university. Like, it's, just like we call it Ateneo Trade. So it's just a Facebook group of, a lot of, it's like an eBay for our university. It's like something like that. But it's just in Facebook.
So it's kind of like a digital mule, like you become a mule and carry all the products to the next country.
And then that's when, a validation came in. Like, a lot of people would use this product. And that's when my friend and I, and actually also my brother, started this startup.
So when you say my friend and I, my friend from Boston or your friend from the Philippines?
He was studying in MIT. And then after he graduated, I came back to the Philippines. And then he also came back to the Philippines. And then that's when we really pushed on and worked on Moober.
What's the name of the company?
Moober, M-U-B.
Moober, M-U-B.
Yeah. But right now, we already closed.
hang on, before we get there. So you met him in when you were in Boston, and then you were both Filipinos, and you both experienced the fact that when you arrive, you have to bring stuff for other Filipinos, and then you came back to the Philippines and realized there was an opportunity.
Filipino, by the way, he was also Filipino.
Yes, okay, it's also Filipino. So how did you implement? How did you get started on doing something?
So he was studying computer science in MIT. He was working on the tech side, and then I was working on the design and product side. So that was the division. Although along the way, I also, wanted to learn programming. So after, in 2014, February 2014, or I think in March, I was already also doing more programming. And then at the same time marketing our product. When we came back to the Philippines, that's when we saw the competition, the GSEA competition.
Okay. Oh, you were not the only one.
Yeah, so that's when we saw the competition, and we thought that since we qualify, actually it was just a coincidence of seeing that, because I remember we were just in the mall and then waiting for my sister to get her haircut, and then when we checked Facebook, someone shared it, and then we said, hey, this is an interesting competition. We qualify it, and it's especially for students. So that's only when we were thinking, like, if we didn't go to that mall and then see that Facebook feed, we wouldn't even know about it. So
you're just talking about the Global Student Entrepreneurship Award?
yeah, so when we applied, there was a local competition. I think more important than the competition are the mentors that we met over there. We had a really good mentor who really helped us actually improve Mover and jumpstart everything. We already launched actually by that time, but we had a different kind of model. So we just replicated Mover from the Facebook way of doing it, like, people talking with each other. So when we met with that mentor, he told us, there must be some changes, like, it must be more of like an Amazon type of website that you just buy and then fulfill it.
What was the background of your mentor? Do you know?
Sure. So he was also a tech guy. He was doing outsourcing. So I think I know of his business, so if you're like a huge company, like for example, Verizon or whatever, or so if you need to install SAP or some Microsoft products, they're the team to do that for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the nature of their business.
All right. So you started. How do you know how much it cost you to start the business, to start Mover?
Well, because we did all the work
yourself.
So ourselves. We didn't have to outsource anything. I don't actually. This is one thing I also look back and I should have done earlier. Right now, I'm doing is to track the expenses that I pay, especially when because in the future, investors would ask you, how much have you put into your business, right?
That's right. That's my question.
Yeah, exactly. And right now, I couldn't really give you a definite answer because So, but I would say, I think when we started, like so far, I think we've invested how much? I don't have a number in my head. Like, I would probably say since 2013, we've spent around 150,000 pesos.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think 150,000. That's probably be $5,000, I suppose.
Okay. All right. So that's manageable, right? Like, and the two of you. Okay.
Also, so it's not only Francis. My brother also joined us afterwards when we arrived in the Philippines.
And so what happened? How come you had to stop the business?
Sure. So we had to. It was a long process. We kind of realized that the growth was too slow for us to stay. And then we had internal also issues about all of us, because we had to, move on, because my friend was graduated and he has to support himself. And so he worked for another company, an 8-to-5 job. So it was really tough. And we couldn't really, give him a salary.
Because you didn't have any to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then I think all of us kind of moved on from the idea. It was a tough, very tough startup. I didn't really realize it's going to be, especially for the type of startup that we were starting, crowdsourcing, package delivery. It was really, for the amount of effort and profit that we get, really did a lot of effort. And then our profit was just per transaction. Minimal. Yeah, like $100, I think.
So did you sit down, all the three of you, and decide not to go ahead with it? Or how did you guys do it?
So we talked about it, about the whole startup, if we're still going to continue it. And then we finally realized that it's time to move on. Also, my friend, actually right now, my friend is starting a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, starting a new one, something he's more interested in, a SaaS model kind of startup. And mine is on a healthcare startup. So
kind of closer to what you do as a student.
Yeah, something closer what we want to do in this. Because we also thought, we couldn't see ourselves doing Uber for the rest of our.
So you were not passionate about crowdsourcing package delivery?
Yeah, I think we were not very passionate about it that much to continue it for very long.
So what type of skills do you think you're bringing now from Uber to your new healthcare project now? What have you learned that you think you're going to bring it?
I think there's a lot of things that right now that I'm doing right now. I regret not doing when I started Uber. For one thing, like I just mentioned earlier, I keep track of everything that's happening. Costing, the investment that we initially received right now, how much money is going out for what purpose. And then right now we also use like Slack to do, because right before we didn't know that. And keeping more contact.
And you also the fact that you've learned how to code and program. That's
essential thing that I learned that I can now contribute not only on the business side but also on the
studying
side, on the technical side. So
so how have you been able to balance studying and running your businesses? Because you're still at uni, right?
Yeah.
Don't you have class today?
I have class later on. It's a very tough time management. It also, offers a lot of trade-offs. So right now in the university, I'm not very involved in organizational stuff like organizations. I'm not very involved. So I had to trade that off if I'm starting this new startup of mine.
What do you mean? Like you don't study
No. So usually in the university, right, you have organizations like extracurricular stuff that you want to join along with your peers. So it's like for me, after my studies, I just go to the gym, and after the gym, I study and do. It's just two worlds. School and the business, school and business. And I have...
Yeah, because you can't really share... Can you share your business with your lecturers and your professors? Like, can you ask them questions about it? Or is that just too foreign for them?
So reach out to them, especially computer science professors and also doctors. For my professors who are some of them are doctors, and then I've shared to almost all of them already about the idea and what they think about it. And I think that's also one thing that some people overlook.
That's right.
Like how you would want, because sometimes when you're in the infancy stage, you don't want to share your idea. But I think it's more important, more than ever, to share your idea to as many people as possible so that you can know how, like the validation. I think that's the validation.
Yes, that's how you did your validation.
Being more open, just talking to, people who are in the field already, and then what they think about the whole, because sometimes, you don't realize that you might not be solving a huge problem at all. Right now, what we're solving it's a hardware startup.
Okay.
We want to build the smartest pillbox.
The smartest what?
Pillbox.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
how do you think you've been learning on your way? Like you mentioned like the startup weekend, but like did you read books about management and startups or listen to podcasts? What did you do?
The book I probably read was from Eric Price, The Lean Startup Machine. And in terms of blogs, I've read also a couple, especially I'm also reading from Quora. It's also a good way to, if you're bored and want to learn stuff.
Okay. So you go on Quora. Okay.
Yeah, Quora, and do some stories, founders. I also read a lot of interesting stories in Medium. So yeah, all sorts of sources in the internet, actually, about startups and the stories. Yeah, so I think that's also how I got to know more about how to do, like interesting would be 5 most common mistakes in a hardware startup, like just what I just read like 3 days ago.
Which as a biology student, that can be quite useful, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because right now I don't really have that much experience. So the only experience I could bring is from the web startup that I started. But right now I'm starting a hardware startup, which is a totally different one. And, also from the GSEA experience, meeting with people who are doing hardware startups, I really got to connect with them. And then I actually when I was there, I wasn't only there for the competition. I joined one of the competitors over there and talked with a hardware startup in Washington, because it was in Washington.
Yeah, so the competition final was in Washington, so you went there and you also met with other people. Oh, that's smart.
We went to an incubator in Washington, D.C.
Oh, which one?
I actually forgot the name, but we just went to a building because my friend just brought me there. And then we met with, it's a smartwatch for blind people.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he was, sharing his experience doing Kickstarter, how to price your hardware, how to, it's a different scheme, hardware. And it's something that I'm still pretty new. And then going through that experience, to that encounter with someone who had his funding goal, I think 150 times more, and how he did that. Because, actually when we see Kickstarter videos, he says that, it's all glamorous, but in fact, when you're doing it, it's very, very stressful before, during, and after.
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's a very tough experience.
Because you want to follow the same model?
Yeah, I also want the same. So I actually asked some tips from him, like how.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and how to,
Do you keep in touch with him now?
Yeah. So he just had his birthday like 2 days ago, and then.
So you followed up good. Any opportunity to contact your mentor? That's great. Yeah.
Right now he's in Korea. I'm actually thinking of going there sometime to meet with him.
Cool. Well, that's a good way. I mean, you've been building a network of mentors through the GSEA competitions and then just expanding through it. All right. So what do you need right now? Do you want people to follow your current business? Are you going to have a crowdsourcing page soon?
We don't have yet a page, so there's not yet there to follow.
So what's your last tip and last recommendation to the audience for people to get started into doing a business, even to biology students, for instance?
Sure. I think people should, for students especially, whether from any field you are, even though it's not a technical, like biology, something, I've always experienced is when I share to them that I study biology, like, why are you studying biology? Aren't you, going to med school? It's the usual reaction I get. But I realize startup is a multidisciplinary project, depending on the field that you are, but still you're going to require a lot of skills. And so it's really a field where any field of study you can join in and start a new one. And I think that's one thing I would tell your listeners, whether from any study that you are currently in, don't be afraid, starting a new startup, because if you really want it, you're going to learn it. And that's one thing. And if you want it and learn it, you join, startup weekends, and I think you get firsthand experience and how it would supposedly look like.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's really good advice. All right. And can we follow you on Facebook somewhere?
Yeah, I'm in Facebook. It's Leo Lope Franco.
Okay.
Yeah, just add me or whatever.
I'll put you on the show notes.
Once we launch Project Mercury, I'll let you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Please do that, and I'll let the audience know. All right. Well, thank you very much, and all the best for Project Mercury.
Thank you so much, Julian.
Each studentpreneur story is different, and what works for some people doesn't for others. However, I'd like to point out a few things in Leo Lope Franco's journey that are similar to the studentpreneurs I have talked to. Leo wasn't destined to start a business. After all, it's not what one does in the Philippines, and biology students are expected to go to med school. Well, as you have realized, the supporting environment is essential. In Boston, he tried out a startup weekend, which changed his mindset and perspective on the world. He learned that startups are a multidisciplinary project and that he had to learn new skills such as coding. He benefited a lot from events and from the GSEA competition. So, get involved in such competitions, whatever field you're in, and you might end up as a business owner down the track. If you have enjoyed this podcast episode, make sure that you subscribe so you can get a fresh episode every Wednesday. Support the StudentPreneur Podcast by liking the Facebook page and giving 5-star reviews in iTunes. Keep breaking the mindset and the stereotypes.